So I would request
ठीक
Dr. Dheeraj Kumar Singh, the General Secretary of Alumni Association of JNU, to
right.
deliver the secretarial address. So subsequently, the presidential remark and the special address, presidential remark, introductory remarks would be delivered by Rajesh Kumarji. So please, Dr. Dheeraj Kumar.
Yes. Namaskar. Good evening, and again a warm welcome to all the delegates, friends, eminent guests, and respected people associated with this global webinar. Alumni Association of JNU, in collaboration with Organization for Diaspora Initiative, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, BRICS Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and Central University of Gujarat, has organized this webinar on another important aspect for which our Indian government was lauded and appreciated across the globe for their steps taken to save the Indian diaspora spread in various parts of the country. To grace this occasion, we have amongst us our chief guests, various eminent dignitaries and speakers. I would like to personally thank Sri V. Muralidharan sir, who is our Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs, Government of India, for taking his precious time out for this webinar amidst his busy schedule, as we all are aware that the parliamentary session are about to start next week. My humble thanks to other important speakers and members present today. Dr. Pramod Kumar, sir, he is the Registrar of JNU. Professor Mohan Gautamji, Chancellor and President, European University of West and East Netherlands. Professor R.S. Dubeji, he is the Vice Chancellor of Central University of Gujarat. Ambassador Anup Kumar Mudra, RSP. Dr. Annapurna Pandeji, she is a professor from University of California, USA. Dr. BBL Madhukarji, he is the Director General of BRICS Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Alok Chakrabalji, Professor from Saurashtra University, Gujarat. Professor Rajnish Kumar Shuklaji is the Vice Chancellor, Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha. Professor Ajay Dubey, President, ODI and Chairperson, Center for African Studies, SIS JNU. Dr. Nirja Arun Gupta ji, Director, Study Abroad Program, Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. Ms. Michelle Thomas is a professional from Melbourne, Australia. And our very own Dr. Atanu Mahapatra ji, Chairperson, Center for Diaspora Studies, Central University, Gujarat, and Head of Organizing Committee of this global webinar. I, Dr. Dheeraj Singh, representing AJ as the General Secretary, would like to tell that our JNU is the official alumni association of JNU, and will always remain proud to be representing our JNU's 80,000 plus alumni network spread across the globe, who have not only made their alma mater proud with their accomplishments, but also have been influential and have been doing immense contributions in all spheres of life, be it research and development, science and technology, health, administration, industries, humanities, policy, political leadership, philanthropy, social outreach, and many more over the last 5 decades. It's important to mention here that in these moments of monumental crisis, we miss to think about the Indian diaspora who lives and work abroad, as also the large chunk of Indian citizens stuck overseas for various reasons like tourism, business tour, official assignments, seminar, conference, and most importantly, students studying in various global institutions and universities. The Indian government embarked on Vande Bharat mission to rescue and bring back Indians stranded in various foreign countries. Given the coronavirus global pandemic crisis, media lauded the Indian government's decision to eventually bring back home lakhs of stranded Indians from across the globe. While the entire country has been reeling under the COVID-19 pandemic, the government, including the esteemed Ministry of External Affairs, has done a commendable job of taking preemptive and timely measures to deal with the century's worst human crisis in the form of global pandemic COVID-19 and touching the lives of lakhs of Indian citizens. To conclude, I would like to say that the collaboration between Alumni Association of JNU, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, Organization for Diaspora Initiative, Central University of Gujarat, BRICS Chambers of Commerce and Industries will surely go a long way to provide some valuable inputs to the government of India to handle the Indian diaspora across the globe, which is the largest in the world. It is a matter of our Indian brothers and sisters abroad, and we can go way beyond limits to help them in all ways possible. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. धन्यवाद.
Thank you, Jaredji, for your secretarial remarks. So now I request President of AJ Alumni Association from JNU, Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, Rajesh Ranjan ji, to please deliver the your introductory address. Rajesh ji.
Am I audible, Atanuji?
Yeah, you are very much audible.
Namaskar. As President of Alumni Association of JNU, I welcome you all to the 8th edition of our webinar series at JNU on government's response towards Indian diaspora, Pravasi Bharatiya, during COVID-19, being organized in association with various eminent institutions like Organization for Diaspora Initiatives, Interrashtriya Sahayog Parishad, BRICS, GRC India, and Central University of Gujarat. It's our proud privilege to have Honorable Union Minister of State for External Affairs as well as Parliamentary Affairs, Government of India, Sri V. Muralidharan ji, amongst us. Besides, we have several eminent academicians, distinguished panelists, and speakers from India and abroad, which include Professor Ramashankar Dubey ji, Central University of Gujarat Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajneesh Shukla ji, Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi Antarrashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Professor Mohan Gautam ji, Dr. Annapurna Pandey ji, Miss Michelle Thomas, Dr. BBL Madhukar ji, Dr. Alok Chakrawal ji, Dr. Nirja Gupta ji, retired diplomat, and my friend Sri Anup Budgal ji, my friends turned professors Dr. Ajay Dubey ji, Dr. Atanu Mahapatra, and our own registrar, JNU registrar, Dr. Pramod Kumar ji. As we gather here to deliberate on Government of India's response to our Indian diaspora, especially the Vande Mataram mission, which is said to be the country's largest repatriation program. This was launched on May 7, 2020 to repatriate Indian stranded in various parts of the globe. As per the Ministry of External Affairs released last week, a couple of weeks back, around 15 lakh Indians have returned to India from abroad in view of the coronavirus pandemic since the launch of Vande Bharat mission. While the Government of India's evacuation efforts need to be lauded, given the COVID-19 pandemic, it would surely go a long way in building confidence among Indians settled abroad and creating a more inclusive India. Besides, there is a growing feeling among all of us that the Indian diaspora needs to be engaged in building the nation. It's highly significant as India has the largest diaspora in the world, pegged at 17.5 million, spread across 146 countries, which means India is the leading country of origin for international migrants, as per the United Nations International Migrant Stock 2019 report published on September 18, 2019. I think it's our responsibility to keep the Indian diaspora settled abroad hooked to their motherland. We need to instill in them a feeling of being at home despite being thousands of kilometers away from it. Keeping the diaspora attuned to the Indian ethos and Indian sanskar and reinforcing the cultural underpinning of our motherland should be our guiding principle, a foundation to govern the relationship between India and PIOs and NRIs. Before I conclude, I would like to make a special mention about our friends, Dr. Atanu Mahapatra of Central University of Gujarat, Dr. Dheeraj Singh ji, our General Secretary, Dr. Mahib ji of IGNU, Dr. Bhargav Mitra, Dr. Priyavrata ji from Sydney, and Dr. Yukteswar ji, who couldn't join us for some reasons, for their unequivocal support, unstinted support. Besides support and secretarial and technical support from Mr. Biju Philip, Mr. Amit Saharan, Mr. Kuldeep Pandey, Mr. Satyendra Rawat. I'm sure you would agree that these webinars would convey the world many positive steps we have taken, notwithstanding COVID-19 pandemic, which would take our country, India, forward to becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Namaskar. Yes, Ataruji. Atanuji, you're mute.
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh, for your very kind words, and which has covered almost all aspects. And so to moving forward, I think now we will start after this address by the officials of alumni associations and also the other associate partners. So I think we will move forward. So before it, let me uh, put forth few points. As we know, COVID-19, a global pandemic, originated from China, which is a years-long expansion policy of China. It's a years long. It's not now, it's years long. And it has reached to maximum countries. And that has yielded a very, very, not only a human impact, it has also impacted the economy also. So not only during this corona crisis, Indian citizens, Indian immigrants, including students, migrant workers, professionals, and also other people of Indian origins, or maybe some immigrants who had been for different medical facilities, they were stranded. And Indian government, under the leadership of, no doubt, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is a popular Prime Minister, so has successfully, and the Minister of External Affairs has very successfully started the Vande Bharat mission, which has not only confined to only air route, it has included all the routes, both land and water, as well as air. And in this sixth phase, it has covered more, I think nearly 10 lakhs people have been evacuated. Similarly, within the country also for internal migrants, more than 60 lakhs people have been evacuated, have been transported to their respective places. And this is a huge, I think, if we consider it, I think such kind of timely response by the present government is really, really adorable. And I think it's not that easy to just say that 10 lakhs of people have been evacuated, but it needs lot many involvement. First is diplomatic involvement, good foreign, good diplomatic relations with foreign, with all neighboring as well as other countries. So such already the, I think under the leadership of Modi, it has been already set as far as foreign policy and diplomatic relationships are concerned. So it was under this leadership of Modi, it has been received, and our foreign policy, and we become such a global aspirant power. It has quite visible, and finally, with such effective foreign policy and diplomatic relationship, we could succeed in evacuating more than 10 lakhs Indian standard citizens. And the process is on, and I think this will continue. The question remains how we can go further and what would be the next. So to deliberate on such issues and some important issues and the future course of action, we have a very distinguished panels, and I think to deliver the first keynote address, I think we have Professor Mohan Gautam, who is the Chancellor and President of European University of West East Netherlands. And he is a Indian, people of Indian origin, Ushe card holder, but a Dutch nationality, Dutch citizenship. And is the Vice Global President, SM University of Netherlands and Seoul, South Korea. And he was the Chairman of Scientific Commission of International Commission on Museums and Cultural Heritage.
हाँ नहीं तो आप सब जानते हो, सब रियलिटी जानते हैं आप. अब उसमें रास्ता यही है कि कोई तरह से करा के अब आपको.
And he held many such important academic positions in different universities, and also European member of Global Origin of People from Indian Origin, GOPIO, and European representative of the Indian Diaspora Council, IDC, New York, and held many positions and has a long career, more than I think 40-45 years career of working on diaspora issue, who is basically an anthropologist. And he has been kind enough to grace such kind of awareness wherever we organize in India, in my department or in India elsewhere. And he has been to many universities, Indian universities, to deliver lecture and share his expertise and views. So in this occasion, I welcome Professor Mohan Gautam, and I request you, without wasting time, I request you to please deliver your keynote address. Thank you, Professor Gautam.
Uh, Thank you very much. You can listen me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can.
Okay, that's very nice. First of all, I would like to thank to this webinar organizers who have taken this step to look at government responses towards the Indian diaspora, especially during the time of COVID-19. Now, of course, first of all, I would like to say thank to Dr. Atnu Mahapatra because he contacted me, and I am very thankful to him. He is the head of the Diaspora Studies section of the Central University of Gujarat, and I think he has been very kind to contact me, and I'm very thankful to him. Then, of course, there are 5 organizations or 5 or 6 organizations which have organized this webinar. And I would like also to thank all the organizations because they have taken such a good step to look at the government responses towards the Indian diaspora. Then there are certain people which I must thank according to protocol. I would like to thank to Shri Muralidharanji, who is the Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs in Delhi. Then I would like also to thank the Vice Chancellor of CUG, Ravi Shankar Duveji, Ram Shankar Duveji, and then of course the Vice Chancellor of Wardha University, Professor Rajesh Shuklaji, and then of course there are many people. Especially I would like to thank to my friend Professor Ajay Dubey because we know each other for a long time. Of course I know many people, but then the time will be wasted because what I want to say I would not have sufficient time. There's a one thing is very good. Yesterday, and another conference finished, and which was also connected with the COVID-19. A colleague of Dr. Atnu Mahapat organized it, Dr. Naresh Kumar, and there are also many organizations, and we tried to work out certain things and got some new ideas. How can we look at the migrants who have come to India and then who are outside India, the migration, and in which way they are affected by this COVID-19 virus. This is another thing. So this is a supplementary two things which are going on. Now, I would like to say here certain things. I mean, I would divide my whole speech in 3 sections. One section would be on India. Second section would be looking at the COVID-19. And the third section would be to give you an example of European countries. And then finally, I might give some recommendations what we could do, in which way we can help the government of India to look at the things and then help the people and the social welfare program and economically, sociologically, and psychologically to give them an idea that they are not alone, they are connected to India. Now, about India, well, one of the most important thing is, and I think I am very thankful in a way, the last Prime Minister, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and I knew him from 70s, that he, at the end of 90, the 90s decade of last century, got this idea with the help of people that there should be an Indian diaspora. And I think this was a start where a high commission was created, high level commission was created, and where there were the Lakshmi Singhvi, Shri Baleshwar Agrawal ji, Shri Harmat ji, and of course, one of the most important person was who played a big role, the Secretary of the External Affairs, Jagdish Sharma. Anyway, so it started, and then what was most important, that after Chinese diaspora, suddenly Indian diaspora became well known. And then Pravasi Bharati Divas started in 2003. I think biggest numbers of indentured laborers, the generations and the NRI, they all came to India because they wanted to be connected with the roots. So they thought India has given us a sort of identity that we are a part of India, and we can ask India, and India can ask us many things economically, socially, etc., etc. Now, this was not only the Pravasi Bharati Divas, but there was also something very important. The Ministry of Indian Affairs was also created, and that started looking at separately from the Ministry of External Affairs or about the Indian problems. And then, of course, one of the first thing was that this high-level commission went to most of the countries, and they talked all sorts of people, and which brought them together. So the people thought India is taking care of us. India government is taking care of us, and we should reciprocate to help them whichever way. After all, India is a land of our forefathers, as they said, Aja Aji. Anyway, so things started, and the only thing was then two terms came, the NRI and PIOs. PIO was given to the indentured laborers who started in the 1834 to 1916, and the NRI were those who went after 1950 for studies, for education, for trainings, etc., etc. And it became a sort of a very good field that these two started talking to each other, thinking after all they have met two brothers. But there are certain things also happened, that most of the people were belonging to many languages, South Indian languages, North Indian languages, because India is a land of at least five families of the languages and the culture. So some sort of understanding came after all. We are a part of the subcontinent India, and then we are geographically one person, and so we should try to develop a nation of Indian consisting of cultures and languages, and a process did start at that time. What India has done now, because we are looking at the government response, India did try, even last year, I did know they tried to help the people from various countries, and the planes were sent there, and the people came over here. Now also, especially from the Middle Eastern country, there are a lot of Indian migrants have come here, and they are also a part of Indian diaspora, and they are also being taken care by the government of India. Of course, the problem comes that we have to deal with all sorts of language. Communication becomes a problem. It's not only English, because many people who went to many countries, they were a sort of unskilled or semi-skilled people, and they did not have command on the languages. But anyway, something was done, and the India government did try to develop some sort of a relationship with them. But then suddenly certain thing happened, and that was this year. And there, I think the role of India government is very important. I was also in February to India, and 15th of February, I returned back to Netherlands. At that time, it was not known, but suddenly it became known that coronavirus is spreading not only in India, in many countries. And then, of course, lockdown started, physical distances or the social distances started, that one should talk to each other at least a distance of 1.5 meter. And then, of course, then the mask also started, you should wash hands, etc., etc. So many things started. And India government also did all whatever they could do, but for them also all these things were new. I mean, if I know, I mean, there have been all the time uh, big epidemics in India also, but suddenly no one thought, and it started from Wuhan, from China as it is called. So, socially speaking, the families were completely disrupted. They could not have the rituals, they could not have the temple worship, they could not have even the festivals, and they could not have the birth, death, all these sanskars which are a part of Indian Hindu family, they could not have it. And so the India government did start some sort of disciplinary approach that we have to think in those lines, otherwise we are lost and people will die. And of course, now India is the second country after United States. So many problems are in India because of COVID-19. Anyway, but what is more important here, that the India had a big problem, and the problem was that India is a subcontinent and divided into many languages and many cultures. Of course, the only cultures and languages one can see in a family. People cannot go everywhere and can see it. They can read, but those are the students. But during the lockdown, the schoolings and the universities, everything was closed. And in that way, the people could not work and could not meet each other. Now, these have been the problem, but you have to divide two ways: rural problems and the urban problems. I think urban problems became more serious than the rural problems. And that's why people started migrating, walking, and people died. And then in that case, we could not stop the COVID-19. Of course, India did try, but question is, when you have such a big country, such a big population, divided into so many languages and culture, it becomes difficult to communicate with them. But India did try. The social medias, radios, TVs, everywhere, India did try that they should understand the COVID problem, and if they can follow certain discipline, we are sure that the COVID would be over. Now, having said this thing, I would try to now give you an example of European countries, and Netherlands is a country which I can give the example. One of the biggest problem of India was, and India still has, we haven't got a medical system. We haven't got the medical insurance. Whereas if we look at the Netherlands, everything is, I mean, all the people are insured. If they go to France, if they go to Germany or wherever, through the computer, one can find out what type of sickness or diseases if he had. The doctor will find out and give them all the medicine. When in Netherlands this thing is started, it's a very interesting, because in Netherlands has about 1600 intensive care unit beds, where you have the complete system of ventilators for breathing, etc., etc. And so they could go. And I must tell you, even the Indians who are the NRI and PIO, both are here. They stayed here. They did not want to go back to India. They did not want to go back to Suriname, because Suriname is the country, the Dutch Guyana, from where the many Indians came here, because they were medically secured. And once you are secured medically, then you need not to spend money. Another thing was in this country, and that was also in Germany, if you haven't got a job, whether you are a student or whether you are a working laborer or whatever, then the government will help you by giving you subsidies. And subsidy for living is about 900 euro. And 900 euro is a very big subsidy. Anyway, so one of the biggest thing which has developed here, and which has also developed in India, and that is the through the unemployment, through, I mean, India did not have all the subsidies. You developed psychological implications. People started thinking, well, I can't do anything. I am isolated. I have no friends. I have nothing. And even those people who went to see the elderly people, they could only see through the glasses. Not any, and once they died, then of course they were also not shown the funerals or the cremation or whatever it is. So this was the problem in the European country, which also I think continued in a way, but less way in India. Of course, universities has been closed, education systems for the primaries and secondary, they were also be closed. Recreation centers were closed, and still they are closed. I mean, now slowly the schools are starting, but everyone is working very hard to have vaccines, because without a vaccine, I do not know for how long we have to stay. This is with India, this is with the state, this is with Brazil. Brazil also suffered a lot. And that means that we have to have a certain discipline. And discipline is to use the mask for the time being, to use the hand washing, that's also necessary, and not to live in dirt, because the general statistics have come. Those people who have been poor, those who did not get anything, they suffered a lot because they could not take care, and they got this infection of intensive COVID-19. Now, another problem for India is here, that everything is okay. Indians are not interested to go back, neither from Germany, not unless until like there have been the marriages or the death or certain festivals when Indians NRI wanted to see their families. They could not because aviation has been stopped. Now, this has given the psychological problems to many Indians. They always think, damn it, what's going to happen with my family? So, this is another thing. But now, another problem which I think we will have to see in Netherlands, in Germany, in France, there are thousands, I'm using the word thousands, of illegal migrants, Indians. Now, they can't do anything. Of course, once they are in Netherlands, then they are taking care, they are giving the money, and they are giving the accommodation to live on. But in many other countries, it is not possible. Now, what could be done for this illegal unemployed laborers? This is a problem which I have always in my mind. Now, I think the best way would be that somewhere we should think that they are our people, Indian people, and we should help them. And how can you help them? The only way is that the Indian embassies, who are, sorry to say, not so much interested about the Indians here, except if they have a friendship, then it's a different story. So I think Indian embassy should do a lot to contact these people, to develop some sort of feeling that they are not alone, they are a part of India, like it happens with the Japanese people. So this should be done. And secondly, which I feel is very interesting about the government point of view of India, we should understand the Indian also. Embassy people are not trained in cultural cultural democracy, not sorry, cultural diplomacy. And once they do not know the culture, what happens? I tell you very frankly, I have seen 40, 50 years here in Netherlands. When an ambassador comes or even a secretary comes, he doesn't know the culture. 6 months are wasted and money is wasted. Then they try to learn slowly what a culture of this country is. Then after a year, they start thinking we have to go back. So again, the interest is lost. So what I'm trying to say, that the Indian government should develop some sort of cultural diplomacy for the staff of the embassies or high commission offices, so that they should understand the Indians. And once they understand the Indians, I'm sure we can move further. The only thing is here that Indians whosoever live, whichever the Indian areas, and they want to go back, if they want to go back, then we should know what type of Indians they are, because they are not the copy of India. They are different. They have developed many traits and elements in their culture, like Hinduism also accepted many things and made it Hindu culture. The same thing they are also doing, and they are developing things in their own way. What we should do from the government of India, that in those areas where the Indians are living, if they are producing certain things, I think we should buy them, and we should also sell our things with them, because they are our lobby. Indians are our lobby, because tomorrow when they're in United States, United Nations, the language being comes, the language, who is going to be our lobby? The Indians are India. I think these are the things which I can say. So I would like to thank you,
Thank you,
all
sir.
my friends who are there. I think we have to look at the things differently, and it
Thank
is
you, sir.
not so easy. And then the implementation becomes the biggest problem. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much for giving me a time, and I am sure I could say something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your good, wonderful keynote address. I think now we should move, because Honorable Minister has to go, because as I said in the beginning, that he has been entrusted with dual responsibility. One is Minister of External Affairs as well as Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. So, and he has to leave it early. So, as we know, we have a very distinguished panelist. Among them, the chief guest of this webinar is आदरणीय वी मुरलीधरन जी. हम सबको पता होगा कि मुरलीधरन जी का केरल से ताल्लुकात रखते हैं. 1958 में आप कन्नूर जिला में जन्म लेने के पश्चात आपकी जितने भी पढ़ाई लिखाई हुए वो सब केरल में हुए, और आप ग्रेजुएशन आपने इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में किया है. और इंग्लिश लिटरेचर के समन्वय जो है हम अभी यहीं से दिखने को लिए मिलता है. English has a direct also link with politics, and during his student career, he has been a student leader also. And I could understand, I could feel, and all of us should feel also in Kerala, if someone like on particularly those days, involving in student politics is a big challenge with a specific ideology. And I think he could successfully overcome and had taken many responsibility during his student leadership. And subsequently, he joined Bharatiya Janata Party, and he held many positions in 1990 to 2002. He was the vice chairman of Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan, NYKS, and from 2002 to 2004, he was the Director General of Nehru Yuva Kendra. From April 2018, he elected to Rajya Sabha, and in June 2018 onwards, he became member of Committee on External Affairs, Consultative Committee of the Ministry of Railways, and also member of Committees on Rules. And also, he has very deep interest, and he is also a member, a court of the Pondicherry University. And at present, he has been looking after the Minister of External Affairs as well as the Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs. So, a student leader, an academician, and also a struggling leader who has come across such much hurdles and experienced. And I think today we are very delighted to listen to him, particularly what government has taken actions and what the future course of action. So I request now, and before Honorable Minister deliver the lecture, I request the ARJ team, who we have for the information of Honorable Minister, that we have already developed a planned out and developed a bi-monthly magazine on diaspora issue, and the name is Namaste Bharat. I would request to play out this video for 1 minute, then subsequently we'll listen to Honorable Minister. May I request the team to just play out this video, please? This should be launched very soon, maybe in a couple of weeks. Thank you. So this is our future initiative in the form of a magazine, which will be circulated initially by through email, which is the e-magazine, and this would cater to a large segment of diasporic population across the world. And we are sure, so this should help and further help in reconnecting with their roots. So with these words, I request Honorable Minister Sri Muralidharanji to deliver his chief guest address. Thank you, sir.
Sri Rajesh Kumar, President of AAJ, the General Secretary of AJ, Dr. Dheeraj Kumar Singh, the convener of the program, Dr. Mahib, who delivered the welcome address, the Registrar of JNU, Dr. Pramod Kumar, Professor Mohan K. Gautam, who delivered the keynote address, other dignitaries, Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey, Dr. Annapurna Pandey, Ambassador Anup Mudgal, Professor Rajneesh Shukla, Dr. BBL Madhukar, Dr. Neeraj Gupta, Ms. Michelle Thomas, Alok Chakrawal, Bhargav Mitra, Ramashankar Dubey, Dr. Priyabrata, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, namaskaram to all of you. It's a great pleasure to connect with you all under the aegis of the alumni of JNU, especially on a topic which is a very contemporary one. In fact, I must thank the AAJ and the Center for Diaspora Studies, Central University of Gujarat, for this opportunity given to me to present the steps taken by our government to address the concerns of the diaspora during the pandemic. Friends, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic poses an unprecedented challenge to all the countries of the world, including India. It has changed the way we used to live, interact, work, and socialize. Our healthcare and associated infrastructure has come under severe stress due to the sudden rise in requirement of isolation beds, ICU, and other life-saving facilities. Initially, even segregating the COVID patients from non-COVID patients at public health facilities posed a significant challenge. Further, India was not producing enough personal protection equipments or life-saving drugs and equipments like ventilators domestically. The disruption of global supply chain of PPEs, life-saving drugs and equipments due to the pandemic only aggravated the situation. The pandemic is a great threat to the livelihood security of millions of our people belonging to the lower middle income category, mainly due to the disruption of their normal economic activity. Because of the challenges posed by the pandemic, every sovereign government faced a dilemma, whether to concentrate on controlling the spread of disease or keep the economy open to ensure livelihood security of one's people. Our government, under the guidance of the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, took a balanced approach of Jaan Bhi, Jahan Bhi, that is, emphasis on both life and livelihood. India started its flight screening system from 17th January, that is a full 13 days before the first case of COVID-19 was detected in our country on 30th January. Screening and graded travel restrictions were increased step by step from mid-January up to March 11, when WHO finally declared COVID-19 to be a pandemic. Measures to propagate social distancing, including graded stoppage of international flights and suspension of visas, were implemented from March 11. And from March 24, a full nationwide lockdown was imposed. The lockdown was truly unprecedented. It included, for instance, stoppage of over 13,000 railway passenger services a day for the first time in India's history as a republic. We also stopped all flight services, most public transport, and so on. Even the WHO acknowledged that our public health responses were proactive, preemptive, and graded. And yet, we maintained continuity of essential services, power supply, water, energy, food products, banking, even delivering essential goods to the entire country. Such measures were inevitable for India because we had no other realistic choice. It's a measure of the acceptance of this need that all political parties in all of India's 28 states and union territories willingly enforced the lockdown. This is because all public authorities in India knew that there were immense variations in availability of medical services and infrastructure within the country. Therefore, an exponential rise in the infection rate could overwhelm our doctors and hospitals. This nationwide lockdown and close observation of the data helped us to upgrade capacity in terms of dedicated COVID hospitals, isolation beds, and ICU beds, ramp up production and procurement of essential PPE sets, ventilators, and testing equipments. Our private sector is being fully involved in the quest to make affordable local alternatives. Many of our Indian companies have been producing a large quantity of PPE kits. We have ensured a manifold increase in supply of oxygen for medical purposes since February 1, 2020. Expanded production of pharmaceutical supplies from antipyretic tablets to hydroxychloroquine to meet domestic needs, and we have started supplying them to the world. Our Ministry of Commerce has even liberalized exports of India-made ventilators to foreign countries. As we increase the capacity to test potential COVID-19 patients, Government of India also co-opted many private labs. Today, India is doing more than 1 million tests per day and is looking to increase it further. As on date, India has tested more than 5.51 crore samples. We are also developing Indian testing kits to meet escalated demand for more liberalized testing. Our government has also employed advanced technology to track and alert citizens of proximity to COVID-19 cases. The mobile app called Arogya Setu app is being extensively used by our people not only to protect themselves from accidental exposure to COVID-19 virus, but also to take precautionary measures in case of such exposure. As on date, there are 15.62 crore citizens using this app. The lockdown has not been easy or without socio-economic costs. For example, despite public assurances and exhortations from states and the union government, reverse migration from cities could not be stopped, especially in parts of North and West India. This started several days after the lockdown was initiated, but in response, thousands of relief camps and shelters were set up, with relief provided by state governments to more than 1.25 million people. Industry and NGOs were also actively involved in this effort. Nationwide food camps were organized and up to 7.5 million people were fed every day. In terms of mitigation, the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan, that is welfare of the poor package, set out rupees 1.7 lakh crore to alleviate the situation of the poor and vulnerable, including farmers and laborers. This includes insurance for 2,20,000 healthcare workers, operationalized since 30th March. Food relief measures are being implemented to provide free food grains and lentils for 80 crore people. LPG cylinders have been provided to 8 crore poor households. Funds are being transferred through our direct cash transfer schemes to poor citizens, senior citizens, differently abled people, and to indigent widows. Some 2.8 crore people have received the first tranche of payments. Impoverished women holding Jan Dhan program accounts are also receiving funds through these direct transfer schemes. On top of this, our Prime Minister announced an economic stimulus package of rupees 20 lakh crore roughly, amounting to 10% of the GDP of our country to revive the economy with a special emphasis on MSMEs. Our government's effort in this direction is still continuing, with every sector of the economy getting the due attention they need. Friends, the reason why I have presented all these facts before you is to draw your attention to the unprecedented challenge faced by the government due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While we were working on war footing to address and mitigate the COVID-19 challenges domestically, India never shied away from its responsibility towards its diaspora. As you may be aware, India has 13 million people who are working or living abroad. It has also a large number of people of Indian origin spread across the world. When the pandemic struck, naturally there was a panic among NRIs because of the fear of being stuck in a foreign land, separated from their family at a time of great uncertainty. In the Gulf countries, where a major chunk of our NRIs are blue-collar workers, faced the prospects of job loss. Many of them were also at the risk of violating local immigration norms, as their visa or work permit was getting over without any realistic possibility of renewal. On top of this, there were cases of emergency. People who went abroad on a short trip with limited money were stuck due to travel restrictions. Educational institutions and hostels were closed indefinitely, throwing the students' life out of gear. There were pregnant ladies who had planned their delivery in India but stuck in a foreign country due to travel restrictions. There were elderly people who had ran out of medicines and could not buy them locally due to either non-availability or exorbitant cost. So Government of India had a huge task at its hand, and we set out to solve the puzzle one piece at a time. Government of India worked with our partner countries in Gulf and other parts of the world to extend the validity of the existing visas, so that our people are not punished for something which is beyond their control. All major countries responded or reacted positively to India's request, as our country too had extended similar facilities for foreign nationals on reciprocal basis. In order to bring back our nationals stranded abroad, especially those who required evacuation for emergency reasons, Government of India initiated the Vande Bharat mission on May 7, 2020. With the launch of the Vande Bharat mission, the massive whole of government effort to respond to the COVID-19 situation entered a new phase. The Vande Bharat mission, or VBM, as it is known, is the largest and the most complex exercise ever undertaken by the government for repatriation of our nationals stranded overseas. It required very close coordination and a smooth flow of inter-ministerial communication involving the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministries of Civil Aviation, Home Affairs, Health and Family Welfare, as well as the concerned state governments. These operations are being carried out through non-scheduled commercial flights operated by Air India Express, private chartered flights, ships of the Indian Navy, as well as by land from those countries which share land border with India. An online registration system was devised and was implemented through our missions and posts across the globe. Simultaneously, MEA developed a dynamic online portal called the REPAT portal, on which requests received by the Indian missions from Indian nationals wishing to return were regularly updated. As on 10th September, MEA has received around 12 lakhs requests for repatriation. Initially, passengers were chosen on the basis of compelling grounds cited by them for travel, including those facing deportation by foreign governments, migrant workers, laborers, or laborers who have been laid off, non-permanent residents or short-term visa holders faced with expiry of visas, those faced with medical emergency or seeking treatment for terminal illness, pregnant women or elderly, those required to return to India due to health of a family member, tourists, visitors stranded abroad, students if their educational institutions or hostels were closed, etc. To better coordinate with the concerned state governments, MEA also designated senior External Affairs Ministry officials as nodal officers to liaise with the state governments for coordinating flight arrivals directly with the state. The data captured by the MEA has been shared on real-time basis with the state government concerned. At the state government level, prior information on the number of passengers per flight and date of arrival along with their health status was a prerequisite to create adequate quarantine and testing capacity. Vande Bharat mission took this requirement also into consideration while scheduling the flights. As we speak, through VBM, a total of 13,74,237 Indians have returned to India under 6 VBM phases. Government of India has operated 2,432 Air India flights and 3,758 chartered flights so far to bring back our people stuck abroad. Of this, 1,27,685 have entered India by land from Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. Through these flights, Kerala received the maximum returnees, and UAE is the #1 country from where the maximum stranded Indians have come. As we enter the phase 6 of VBM, Government of India is trying to schedule as many flights as possible in consultations with the Ministry of Civil Aviation for bringing maximum possible number of the stranded Indians back. MEA is closely working with the DGCA, Director General of Civil Aviation, to find innovative ways to cater to the requests of the stranded Indians expeditiously. A decision was taken to allow use of foreign carriers for bringing stranded Indians in remote areas of Latin American countries, Africa, and parts of Europe. To further ease international travel, flights from USA, France, Germany, UAE, UK, Afghanistan, and Maldives have been allowed on bilateral arrangements, more commonly known as bubble arrangements. Apart from Indian citizens, the Government of India has also taken a more considerate approach towards the requirements of people of Indian origin, especially the overseas citizen of India, that is the OCI card holders. Government has allowed OCI cardholders and few categories of foreign nationals to travel to India subject to certain conditions. These decisions have been taken based on the demand from our diaspora and with a view to reduce delays. Our missions and consulates have been facilitating their travel to India through VBM flights. Friends, I think I must conclude here. But before doing so, let me again re-emphasize that the battle against COVID is only half won. The fight is still on. While we have started relaxing most of our domestic restrictions, some critical ones still remain in place, and international air travel is one among them. But that doesn't mean that Government of India is not aware of the needs of our diaspora. So far, our government under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has done whatever it could to our diaspora given the difficult circumstances we are in. Our government is open to doing more and welcome any suggestions in this regard with open arms. And that's the message that I would like you all to carry after today's interaction. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very comprehensive outline of Government of India responded to the COVID-19 challenges both in India as well as abroad. So this is a wonderful outline delivered by our Honorable Minister. So how a strong government and a concerned government has taken so much of efforts for its citizens within and outside. So now, thank you very much, sir, for your kind words and very extensive and comprehensive outline. And so already the program has been set, the ball has been rolled on. So now I would request Registrar of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Professor Pramod Kumar, who is also an academician and an environmentalist and a PhD from JNU in Environmental Science. I request to briefly welcome and give his remarks on this webinar. Professor Pramod Kumar ji. Professor Dr. Pramod Kumar, can you hear me? Dr. Pramod Kumar ji. प्रमोद जी हैं क्या लाइन में? प्रमोद जी,
I can't see him among the participants.
Atanu ji, you call the next one, next speaker, please.
Yes, sir. Anyway, so we'll go ahead with. So now the next speaker would be Professor Ajay Dubey. Professor Ajay Dubey is here. I think because he is parallel having one more webinar and which he is hosting in JNU. Yeah, Professor Ajay Dubey sir is here. Thank you very much, sir, because I know you have a very great, very difficult time because managing two webinar at one point of time. So thank you so much, sir. Just to briefly introduce Speaker Professor Ajay Dubey, an old diaspora experts in India who is very reputed and very renowned. Perhaps all diaspora scholars, researchers, and also academicians they know in India as well as outside. Professor Dubey has been the president, the founder president of ODI and presently the chairperson of Center for African Studies. And he has been continuously working for last many years from his student life and visited many countries, particularly different academic assignment. And of course, he has been my teacher as well, so mentor also. And his students are also in my department. And so it's a great pleasure to see teachers speaking in this webinar. And I think he has to manage another webinar also. So without wasting time, I request Professor Ajay Dubey. Sir, please give your remarks, your views.
Thank you, Dr. Atnu Mahapatra, for giving me time. Am I audible? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me thank all the organizers, the office bearers of ours, honorable ministers, good friends, Gautam Mohan, and several of them who are there. As Dr. Atnu Mahapatra said, I am already in a webinar which was prefixed with speakers from 11 countries participating in this, which is going on concurrently. But I'm very happy to be here and share my thought on this issue, as was very rightly pointed out by our honorable minister, about several measures which Government of India has under panel. The measures are Bande Bharat and a few other. All that I would like to say as an academic that Government of India has provided all possible assistance to Indian diaspora. But Indian diaspora is a category which is much bigger than what we supported them through policy, which was highlighted. There are other policy support also which Government of India provided. Maybe because of the lack of time, he could not take all of them. Bande Bharat mission is just one of them and the largest one. But as we know, the Indian diaspora consists of two components: those who are Indian citizens and those who are not Indian citizens but are of Indian origins and settled all over the world. And in this pandemic situation, when India was confronting to meet the requirement of its own people, its own migrant within the country in huge number, all caught unaware, it also has a sensitivity towards Indian diaspora at large, which consisted of Indian national as well as those who are of Indian origin, and it responded in a very calibrated way to them. For, of course, Indian nationals, there were two categories of them: one who were affluent, located in developed countries, and they could manage to stay for some time, and another one which was a very large number in Gulf region, also in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and some other country, Indonesia, where they were semi-skilled or low-skilled workers which were chucked out of the job, didn't have money to survive and pay for their own transport. And besides Government of India, the local organization helped them out in terms of their stay, in terms of their food, in terms of transporting them to a different location, and finally to Air India flights that was organized under Vande Bharat. But the second category of PIO was also catered by India in terms of providing medical assistance. Many of these Indian diaspora are located in Africa, Southeast Asia, in the Indian Ocean, and Government of India prioritized each country in terms of providing support of sending medicines in huge quantity to Mauritius, to some African countries, and External Affairs Minister was regularly tweeting and monitoring that how these diaspora dense countries are also catered to with the limited facility that India had. Therefore, it provided to the people of Indian origin in terms of sending medicine, in terms of sending kits for handling this, in terms of also sending some doctor teams and some nurses team to some of these diaspora dense countries. It in Africa, in some countries, and in other part of the world where it has established the telemedicine facilities beforehand, it utilized that and sent its team to train local people in medical facilities that can be extended to them, and medical support that can be provided to them. So Government of India catered to both categories of diaspora, those who are of Indian origin, where it was duty bound to to provide assistance to them and to help them out. At the same time, it also catered to people of Indian origin who have become part of the larger Indian overseas diaspora policy, and they are seen more as a resource in terms of making India surface globally as a major world power, which the destiny is making it possible, and leadership of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which has established outreach and contact with most of the diasporic organization all over the world, and made diaspora as a major plank, as a major driver of India's foreign policy. And therefore, diaspora of all varieties, in rich country, in poor country, with NRI, with PIO population, were targeted, of course, with the limited resource that India had. And therefore, it's a relationship under COVID that India reached out to them and is looking towards them to establish a more meaningful relationship emerging out of this pandemic, to the need to see how this engagement, this connect, can be further strengthened by meeting each other expectation. I'll thank all of you for this time, and thank you so much for your attention.
I think I should also inform all the dignitaries and participants. Besides his primary responsibility as a Center for Chairperson of African Studies, he is also entrusted with many multiple responsibilities in JNU. He is also heading Director of Foreign Affairs to Foreign Students, and also Director of IQAC, Internal Quality Assurance Committee. So thank you very much, sir, for giving an outline how government has responded both both the PIU and the diaspora and the standard citizens. And thank you so much. I think you should also make him busy and hurry. And now moving on to the next speaker, I think Dr. Pramod Kumar is available. Dr. Dheeraj, is Pramod Kumarji available? Can you hear me? Anyway, so we'll go ahead with.
I have to go to the other meeting.
Yeah, I know that. So equally as Professor Ajay Dubey, so similarly Dr. Annapurna Pandey Madam also, Professor Pandey is also be a speaker there in that webinar. And just briefly, I am giving the introduction of Professor Annapurna Pandey, who teaches cultural anthropology at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Dr. Pandey holds a PhD in sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University, as I said earlier, because he is also a JNU alumni, and was a postdoctoral fellow in social anthropology at Cambridge, United Kingdom. Her research interests are diaspora studies, South Asian religion, immigrant women's identity, making in the diaspora in California. Most recently, her research work focuses very important to note that H1B and H4 visa holders in the context of the pandemic. She is the author of numerous essays on Indian women's activism, agency, entrepreneurship, and empowerment in India and Indian diaspora, and has lectured about them in several university and research forums all over the world. Dr. Pandey recently completed a senior Fulbright US scholarship for him in India, and she is an accomplished filmmaker also. Homeland in the Heart, The Myth of Buddha's Birthplace, with Professor James Freeman, and Road to Juni, which is the latest one, most recent one, and it was also acclaimed in International Film Festival in 2018 and has received multiple national and international awards, this Road to Juni film also. So we have a wonderful a true cultural academician, Professor Annapurna Pandey, who is equally in academics as well as in culture, particularly in filmmaking and other also areas also. So I would request Professor Pandey to deliver her views. Thank you. Yeah, madam, please. Please unmute. Madam, please unmute your mic.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Much, Professor Mahapatra, for this generous introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Mahapatra for contacting me. The Center for the Diaspora Studies, Central University of Gujarat, one of my most favorite places that I have visited already a couple of times. Rajesh Kumar, President of the Alumni Association of JNU, and all the other 5 organizations for putting together such a timely webinar. I am a very proud JNUite, and I take great pride because just introducing myself as a JNUite. So anything JNU related that you are doing, I'm always interested to learn more from you all. I would like to thank Honorable Minister Sri Muralidharan, Minister of State for External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs, for such an illuminatory talk, and I learned so much. Dr. Pramod Kumar, Registrar JNU, Professor Ramasankar Dubey, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Gujarat, Professor Ajay Dubey, who just spoke before me and very much laid out a kind of a wonderful way how to address the Indian diaspora. And of course, that Ambassador Anup Mudgal, Professor Mohan Gautam, among all other dignitaries. I teach cultures of India, Indian diaspora, and have been actively doing research on the Indian immigrants here in the USA. I have been studying the H-1B and H-4 visa holders who have come to the USA on work visa, known as the non-immigrants. And they have been affected the most during the pandemics. I would like to discuss that. So they have a maximum 6-year visa unless they get a green card being sponsored by their company. About 500,000 of them are about 500,000 non-immigrant visa holders are here in the United States. They are called the high-skilled workers, and 70% of them are from India. India is the highest contributor and subscriber to this kind of, these immigrants, the non-immigrants rather, coming to United States. And they come with their families, their wives and children. They are known as the dependents. H-4 visa holders. Their number is close to about 1 million. So imagine about 4 million Indians of Indian origin, and about 1 million of them are in this kind of floating the floating situation, because they are known as non-immigrants and are working for the United States in various companies. The companies you name, Facebook, Google, among others. So, and they contribute tremendously to the prosperity of the United States. And one interesting and also this interesting fact is these H-4 visa holders cannot work in this country as dependents. They don't have a social security card. They don't have a driver's license. They cannot even have a bank account. They don't have a credit card. And most of these women, educated professionals who are coming from India on H-4 visa, they become confined to their homes and they become non-entities. And their visa is called depression visa. Many studies have been done. And lately in 2015, Obama government introduced H-4 EAD to make some of them eligible to work only if their spouses have I-140 in the process of getting their green card. So a majority of the H-4 visa holders who are scattered with their spouses in IT industry all over the country are still not working. During the pandemics, the H-1B workers have been affected the most, along with their H-4 dependents. Even though we say that the technology industry has not been affected that much, but we see that there has been a huge job loss, and United States now is kind of, experiencing unemployment about 10%. It was 15%, never heard of since the Depression, but now about 10%, and still, and I think majority of these H-4 visa holders, H-1B visa holders have lost their jobs. And this is where, and another issue here I want to bring to you, that is the children. The children who come as dependents being born in India, that they are also H-4 visa holders. They suddenly, at the age 21, they become foreigners. they become illegals in this country. So they age out. So they have to go back to India to get their F1 if they want to come back as students. So this is also another issue that, and this happens with the, this is tied to a very important fact that the people who come on H1B, they apply for their green card, and they are on the kind of, and there is a huge backlog for the green card because India produces the maximum high-tech workers coming to United States, but only America issues 140,000 green cards every year. Out of 140,000, each country has a 7% quota. And in that quota, India's number is very small. And even though India contributes the maximum workers, the people who get the visa, their number is very, very small. So as a backlog, there has been a lot of debate going on that. So the children have suffered the most. So here my humble submission to the Indian External Affairs Ministry to see to it if the children, the adults, for them, America is their home. When they go back to India, how their visa process can be smoothened, because we here, I have interviewed hundreds of these students who are brought up here, go to India, get a F1, and how to kind of make their experience little better, and how to see that they don't feel unwanted going back to India. And also here I would say that if India can intervene in any way that with the USCIS, that United States the immigration agency, that how to kind of create a kind of a better system without using the 7% quota, eliminating the quota system, that would be a great help. I know our Prime Minister Modi has a fantastic relationship with President Trump and the American government. So it will be wonderful if there's something, there can be a liaison, can be a collaboration. I hope the minister is here, that I'm just kind of, because I am studying them, I have been interviewing them. I think I am also part of many of these activist groups that who are making cases, who are doing demonstrations, who are kind of, making a case for themselves for living here for 10, 15 years. Imagine for them to get a green card, it will be 150 years. So they will be dead. And many of them have passed away in the process of waiting for the green card. And in this context, I would like to say just a few words how the pandemic has really affected and what the Indian government has done. That since the first week of March 2022, the USA has been in a limbo overnight. Millions of people have lost their jobs. The it's been the unparalleled and the kind of that we see that it has been unbelievable that the unemployment rate has been high. Many high-skilled professionals have lost their jobs. Among them, the high-skilled foreigners known as H1B holders have been the hardest hit, and they are in a very precarious state. They are not entitled to any unemployment benefit. They are the highest contributors, by the way, to the remittance back to India. So they are not entitled to any even though they are paying taxes, they don't get any benefit, unlike the citizens or the green card holders. So their spouses, even with legal permission to work, called EAD, they are also lose their jobs as along with H1B, because their visa is tied to H1B. So India's External Affairs Ministry has initiated this Bande Bharat mission. According to our Sanjay Panda, the outgoing Consul General of India in San Francisco, 40,000 Indian nationals have been registered. There have been a huge kind of waiting list, but India has done its best in just bringing back these Indian citizens. And interestingly, and very kind of, and I really want to thank the External Affairs Ministry and the Prime Minister, our Honorable Minister is here on May 22nd. 2020, Government of India issued a memo that OCI cases also will be entertained, that the children who are OCI being born here, they also can accompany their parents. This is just a fantastic move. But I would like to, and then also giving priority, as the minister said, giving priority to the elderly, to the medically, to the sick, and to also to the visitors who visited. So, but I really want to bring to your attention a very important issue that I am working on is domestic abuse and domestic violence, especially among the H4 dependents. But, you will be really surprised that between 2017 to 2019, the ministry has received about 4,000 complaints, most of them from USA and UK ministry, to kind of, that for domestic violence cases. So the ministry provides information. The ministry also kind of, provides some sort of finance. And also there is a bill now continuing. The bill is now issued. The bill is now on the floor that in the parliament to kind of, how to address this issue. But I really want to make a case here by talking to various organizations and various people who have been suffering, that the ministry should make sure that they can help with the background checks of the people who are already been convicted in the United States. So doing a background check and just having posters in the visa offices, passport offices, so that way people know that these people, these predators, they go back, marry young women, bring them back, treat them badly, and they are stranded, they're abandoned with their children, and they're forcefully deported back to the country. So there is a background check that I would recommend that for the ministry to really take into account. And also also the people who are coming to this country as students, as also young spouses, that what are their rights. If the External Affairs Ministry makes sure to kind of popularize the rights of these people, that kind of as Indian citizens, and also what are the opportunities available here, that would be a big help, because these people come, they are confined to their homes, they do not have any way to learn about their rights, they are kind of the opportunities they have. So I would urge that there's this connection that between the India and US agencies to be much more stronger. So that way, that kind of the people who are suffering silently, their issue will be addressed. There are numerous instances now that the bride's family are under pressure to not press charges or report the police. So the role of External Affairs Ministry is to educate the young people, the elderly, about their various roles. For example, there is an act called Violence Against Women Act 1994, introduced by now the Vice President Biden, which was made into a law during the Clinton's regime, but which has really gone through several amendments. It applies to abused partners, both men and women, elderly parents who come from India and are abused, and also adult children who are abused. So these issues, if we can bring to make kind of to the public knowledge, to make it more popular, more accessible, so that way people who are coming to this country, they come with open eyes, that what are their rights, how they can take advantage of their rights. So because many of these H4 visa holders, mostly women, have to go back as their visa expires, but they have to leave their children who are US citizens. So when the H1B spouse would intentionally not help with the extension of visa, and in a few cases each stop the green card process, here the External Affairs Ministry can help. So with this, my humble submission, I really kind of find it such a wonderful opportunity. Thank you again, Professor Mahapatra. Thank you, Aj. Thank you, all the organizations, for this timely webinar. And I would love to collaborate with you all. Thank you.
Atnuji, please unmute your mic.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful outlining the issue of H1B, your concern of H4 visa, and certainly we will get it through. We'll get it communicated to the ministry because the minister was already here, and we will get because the report will be submitted soon. And also, you talked about how best the government has, Indian government has responded, and the concern and the issues which were particularly the domestic abuse, the violence, that is a major concern also. And there is a check which is required, particularly to avoid such kind of violence and domestic abuse. So that would help. So certainly this would be, can be put it in the policy making of the government of India, and we'll try to get it communicated to the concerned, to the Minister of External Affairs, and we'll try the best policy can be evolved. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words. And it's very, very early morning there, and you have joined, spared time for us. So it's a great, we are very much indebted to you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
So now moving ahead, so now I request the guest of honor and Ambassador Anup Mudgalji, and who is he Am I? Sir, thank you so much, sir. So, sir has been here for a long time. Thank you so much. And he represents now Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, and particularly his interest on academics. And he has started under his leadership in ARSP. He has started the DRRC, Diaspora Research and Resource Center, which is looking after as the chairman of that center, particularly right now. And Ambassador Mudgal, a member of Indian Foreign Service, and retired in 2016 as India's High Commissioner to Mauritius. As a part of his diplomatic career, spanning 32 years, he served 3 years at the headquarters of Ministry of External Affairs, handling relations with India's neighborhood, Asian region, Russian Federation, and some countries of Central and Eastern European, as well as issues relating to human resource development. A part of his 8 assignments abroad, Ambassador Mudgal served in different capacity at the Indian mission in Mexico, including NAFTA matters, Peru, from which you call former Yugoslavia, and Belgium, UE matters, Germany, Austria, and work relating to IAE, UN, UNIDO, UNODC, UNOSO, and UNICETRAL, and Mauritius, including IORA. So one important thing which I should also inform here is academics and why I said, because his interest is also there is maritime security and defense, and also ocean blue economy, trade policy and market access, technology transfer, adaptation applications, energy and transport, human resource management, including skills, because he has served in various capacities and various countries. But recently, because I had also had an opportunity to listen to you on blue economy last year, and sir, I also inform you that we have started a program on maritime security, including cyber security also in Central University of Gujarat. So I think it's wonderful, and you can also in future also we can seek your guidance and support in terms of your academic future academic endeavor. So without wasting time, I would request Ambassador Anup Mudgal to please deliver your address. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You see, since you mentioned about blue economy and your interest in blue economy, we in fact have taken out our second report on blue economy, which is a sectoral report. In fact, that report was released by Honorable Minister himself just before the pandemic, in fact. And also, I am a member of a steering committee under Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council on blue economy. And that report has in fact come out only about a week ago. And now we are working on a third phase of our Blue Economy report, and that is between Ficky, Terry, and there's a German organization called CAS. So, Atanu, I'll be very happy to come and discuss about blue economy and maritime security, since you mentioned that specifically. Now, you see, after listening to the Honorable Minister, Professor Dubey, Professor Pandey, and other speakers, I think most of the issues have already been covered. I was wondering, how can I add value to what they have already said? Since you mentioned, I head Diaspora Research and Resource Center at ARSP. I think this will be relevant for me to say something about ARSP and DRRC. In fact, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad is a non-government, non-profit organization, which in fact has been working on diaspora matters for over 40 years now. Atanu, there was hardly any setup in the official circles 40 years ago for specifically dealing with diaspora issues beyond the consular and passport matters. But ARSP was already working on diaspora issues, both in the NRI area and also in the PIO area. And that experience of ARSP, in fact, one of your speakers mentioned about that committee which was set up to go into the diaspora matters under Dr. L.M. Singhvi, which in fact made some recommendations. And those recommendations then led to a lot of changes in our policy to deal with diaspora, including the OCI, PIO, and the Pravasi Bharatiya thing. And then later on, a lot of things I can go over those issues, but that will require a separate presentation. Now, DRRC was set up in ARSP with the support of Ministry of External Affairs, primarily to upgrade the ARSP's engagement with diaspora with a specific research content. That is what we are doing there. Now, you see, having dealt with diaspora when this pandemic occurred, of course, DRRC and ARSP had to kind of stay ahead of the curve and start thinking how this pandemic is going to impact diaspora and what kind of problems they may face and what would need to be done by the government in terms of policy adjustment and adaptation for helping those people. We under the ARSP, in fact, we have organized a series of sectoral dialogue with diaspora in Americas, diaspora in Gulf, diaspora in the Girmitia countries, and diaspora in the Indian Ocean region. Now, what I will do, because since most of the issues have already been covered by Honorable Minister and Professor Dubey, I will try to share with you what the diaspora shared with us in our series of conferences as to how COVID is going to impact and what needs to be done. As the Honorable Minister said, the battle is just halfway. A lot of implications are still in the waiting, and we need to be prepared for that. Now, first is, people might sometimes think that this is the first crisis that we are facing, or this is the first time that we have evacuated Indians from other regions. I would take them back. In fact, it's a long story, because when we talk about demographic dividend, we in fact long ago we had been talking about the possibility of India becoming the skilled manpower supplier for the global industry. That is what happened, in fact, in the last though the Indian diaspora story goes back by centuries, rather, I can take you back to the Kalinga times. But I will come to the later post-independence period. Over last 30 years, in fact, a large number of Indian skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled professionals have traveled all over the world. As a result, today we have almost 31, 32 million members of diaspora, which includes the NRIs and PIOs, spread over more than 100 countries. And this diaspora has, in fact, become a very, very important soft power bridge for India. They are playing a bridge role in terms of politics, in terms of culture, in terms of people to people contact, in terms of economy, in terms of technology, in terms of technology transfers. And we are so proud of what the diaspora, Indian diaspora has done for the global community and also for India. But then, when you have such a large diaspora, and when you have such expectation from them, on the other hand, we also need to be prepared just in case there is a situation of crisis and we have to help our diaspora spread all over the world. In fact, I remember, we started dealing with diaspora crisis from the Gulf War. We dealt with Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Libya, Lebanon, all those crises. We moved large number of people back to India under those operations also. But the question is, this crisis as we are dealing with today, is qualitatively different from those crises. This is absolutely unprecedented. You see, in most of the earlier evacuations, though the numbers were very large, we ran into millions of people who were brought back to India, but it was mostly a two-way traffic. You see, there was a place from where we were supposed to bring people back, and they had to be brought back to India. And once they touched India, they had, a fallback position to look after themselves. But this is the first time that we are facing a crisis where literally every country is suffering the consequences. As a result, when you have to manage, say, large number of source points for evacuation of Indians, believe me, it's not an easy task. It's a Herculean task. It's very complex because you are not only dealing with a crisis, but also there are local laws, there are local restrictions, there are local regulations. Now, once you combine all those things, it is not easy task to mobilize people from so many countries in such large number. I think India has done probably, I would say, amongst the best in terms of bringing our people back to India. This is an extraordinary job which we have performed, and I'm sure we should be proud of that. Let me tell you, in terms of evacuation, in case of disaster relief, world over today, India is seen as a role model because we have shown to the world, we have not only evacuated our people from the crisis zone, but we have also evacuated people, nationals of other countries, especially our neighboring countries, who may not have the capacity to do it. So I think in terms of the evacuation part, we have done fairly well, though when you have diaspora exceeding 30 million, dealing with that number is not easy. There would always be people who would not be able to reach out, who would not be able to get assistance in time, or who might really get caught in complex web of regulations. I heard Professor Pandey mentioning about the OCI card holders. In one of our conferences, in fact, this point was mentioned because when we had to stop the foreigners coming to India, foreigners means the OCIs are also foreigners. In fact, they are foreign nationals, and they got caught in this process. And there were many cases where the parents were Indian passport holders and the children were foreign passport holders, but with OCI. Now, with the children, the parents also got stuck. So when this was brought to the attention of the ministry, they immediately rectified this and responded to this. I have been in touch with our missions in many countries because we were receiving some distress calls in India, and knowing that I am from foreign service, so they were telling me, can you please contact your particular embassy to find assistance for their loved one who was stuck there. And whenever I contacted them, they knew the person I was talking about. They knew the difficulty the person was facing in that country, and they came forward to help. You see, in fact, one of the earlier speakers mentioned about, the embassies are not proactive. I think there was a time when this opinion was probably right to some extent, but since the start of the PBD process and other engagement tools, today the embassies cannot stay silent if a member of Indian diaspora is suffering. Let me tell you my own experience. I was in many countries. Because of the proactive involvement and action by the Indian missions abroad, Indian origin foreigners would come to us for help. Can you imagine? I have had situations where, in fact, a foreign national but of Indian origin got into difficulty and their own embassy was not able to help. They came to us and we helped. So I think when it comes to the embassies being proactive, the embassies are doing, I think, what they can. You have to remember these things require tremendous amount of resources. And in many cases, our embassies are working with very, very limited resources. We have to understand we are still a developing country. We cannot really pump in money without any limits whenever we need. So we have limited resources, but within the limited resources, I think the amount of job our people have done is absolutely extraordinary. And for the Ministry of External Affairs runs what is called a situation room, which in fact I set up long ago. It was almost about 20 years ago. And this situation room, even 20 years ago, was able looking at the data which says Indian students spend about $12 billion a year only in the US. And that's a lot of money. Can we really flow back those resources and create those facilities in India, not only for the Indian students, but also for students for other countries? And of course, you must have heard a lot about the supply chain disruption. Now, the pandemic is going to force a lot of countries to redo or rearrange their supply chains. And while we might also lose a lot of business because of disruption in supply chains, but we can also take advantage of the new opportunities which may arise by locating supply chains in India or India becoming part of the regional and global supply chains. I think I can continue on this topic for a much longer period, but I know the time is limited. Therefore, I will stop here. You see, and I tell Professor Atanu Mahapatra, in case you want to develop any of these themes further, I'll be very happy to work with you and contribute further in terms of developing what is called the roadmaps, right, for opportunities and also for addressing the challenges the diaspora might face because of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, because it's a pleasure. I mean, that you have offered that we would certainly be happy wherever you are. So we would certainly seek your support and guidance in many things, not only diaspora, but also in, as I said earlier, maritime security and cyber security also. Particularly diaspora, you have been an expert on various issues, traveled many places, many diasporic concentration countries, Indian diasporic concentration countries. So certainly you will be an asset to all of us, and your guidance will help us to create new things and explore new things also to and address these problems and getting the solutions as well. Sir, you have delivered certain issues while saying that it's a wonderful and a very phenomenal job, unprecedented job done by the government of India under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. And there is also equally, so there is a loss which perhaps irreparable in coming years, particularly losing jobs and also you talked about the financial assistance for the students those who are not getting, and they might lose also. And job opportunities, of course, not only in India but also there in the coastland also. And secondly, the opportunities which I think it can be. So I think the recent initiative of Atmanirbhar Bharat, somehow if you can link it up, so we can see there are some reprieve, some relief to such kind of problems to be addressed, not only within India but also outside from the diasporic group also. So India is developing, India is taking care of, and I'm sure if it is materializes, and I'm sure some at a large extent we can address the loss of opportunities, particular job opportunities and also economic opportunities. And India will certainly try to look for some more investment, drawing more investment, more FDIs, also investing in the foreign nationals also. We'll see, and the time will see how much we have covered and how much we can cover. Thank you very much for your kind words, for your very
just about 10 seconds, just about 10 seconds.
Yes, sir.
I have been approached by many others to talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think we start working on that.
Yes,
because the common people do not fully understand what is Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Right, sir.
They are still confusing the whole thing with import substitution and isolationism.
Right,
sir. Atmanirbhar Bharat is an idea of globalized world and not isolationism. So I would suggest please work on that. That will go a long way in helping India in facing such challenges.
Certainly, sir. Certainly,
Thank you very much.
Certainly, sir. Thank you so much. So next we'll move ahead with the next speaker, Professor Rajneesh Shukla. Professor Rajneesh Shukla, is he here? Professor Rajneesh Shukla. Rajneesh sir? Professor Rajneesh Shukla, are you here? I think he was in fact traveling, so he may join a little later. I think he was on the way. He was traveling from Delhi to Wardha. So I was told that I'm in trouble, so during I may get disconnected. So maybe he will join later on. So next, I'd like to request our next speaker, Dr. BBL Madhurkar. Dr. Madhurkar, are you here, sir? Dr. Madhurkar? Mayibji, can you just check Dr. Madhurkar is here? Am I audible, Rajeshji? And Dr. Madhurkar?
Yes, you are audible, Atanubai.
And important subject as a discussion. I know much has been already deliberated. I'm not going to repeat on those subjects. Many contours have already been touched. And as an accommodation, I would like to present certain views, India's response to the COVID and its impact. Now, I would like to state two types of impact that we at the centers study because we are in India. So when we see India's attempt towards diaspora, our main job is to study and analyze them and then try our suggestions for the futuristic approaches. Under the marvelous leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and External Affairs Ministry and many other agencies, Aviation Ministry and many other, we can't even name them. It's very easy to say that we evacuated, there were repatriation flights, the diaspora were helped out, 10 lakh people were brought home back. These are very simple sentences. But if we study the background, the stage, the backstage, if we study the steps, if we study that soft hand, the touch, the care, the gentleness, the thoughtfulness, the emotions, and beyond that, the strategy, then we would realize how important India's response to COVID is. We understand that with these steps, India has touched two ends. On one end, it has touched the diaspora, and on the another end, it has already touched the world community. Post COVID, India has risen to the occasion. Now, many countries have failed to rise to the occasion. For a country like India, it wasn't that easy. We already know our population. We already know our lack of medical facilities within the country. We were fighting the spread of diseases in our communities, in our states, in our cities, and mostly with the internal migration. We were so petrified when this internal migration started that would we go to the stage 3 very quickly, but very smartly, very intelligently, very beautifully, Indian citizens have risen to this call. And this has actually given a boost to the government's stats, or this has inculcated a sort of confidence. So it was reciprocal. India stood to the occasion, and the response will go a long way. This will not be a very localized response that, okay, we evacuated people and they came back home and diaspora community is touched or they praise India. It's not like that. As an accommodation, I would say it has impacted in two ways. The India boldly has taken this as an opportunity. It has created a model of leadership, and within diaspora community, it has gone to the world polity. So wherever the diaspora were placed, they themselves have strengthened themselves. Even though they didn't want to come back, there was a larger portion who didn't come back to India. The workers and the students were the main who were brought back to country, but there is a large now given against the common threats as a model. So India's response to COVID is not limited to only diaspora. It has gone beyond diaspora to give the solution to the world. This response strategy and its pace in the face of this pandemic has been characterized by a narrow and I can say parochial approach, which is of course worrisome. It is going to complicate the mankind, but a situation like this involves risks and unassured outcomes. But it also throws opportunities which India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Sir, has actually grabbed those opportunities. It has proved to be a bold country. It has proved to be a performing country. It is surely a moment of opportunity for a country like India to prove its capacity. India has really proven the capacity to absorb the calamity, absorb the grim, and absorb the migrants. Now, leadership vision and this chart a decisive course to the front line of the new world order. India's response has been marked by appropriate both in the terms of direction as well as the requisite pace. The initiative is very sincere, very sensitive, very pragmatic approach India has shown to the world, to the whole region actually, starting from the local states to the global continents. It has shown the measures of cooperation, then the concerted and coordinated action is the urgent need of the hour. And that is India is reiterating again and again. Besides this, the neighborhood approach. India has taken the necessary step to coordinate the efforts extended to neighborhood and especially to the Gulf countries. Now, this action should go a long way in the strategy of the Islamic Brotherhood, because we are targeting the Gulf countries, giving helping hand to our workers over there, which are our basically moving ambassadors. So when they go back to the Gulf countries after the situation becomes normal and they go back to the work, they are actually carrying a message to the Muslim world as well. So we are actually reshaping the Gulf politics somewhere. This might not be very urgent, but I can see it happening through our soft ambassadors. Around 6,000 Indian nationals were stranded in Iran. We have seen how India responded to them. Then, the way India made a bold plan and then it sent the heavy military transports, the aircrafts, the experts, the medical equipments, the testing labs, everything, and it has donated the hard pressed Iran as a gesture of friendship. This particular incident I would like to take up as a project. It was not a very small incident. So among the unprecedented hardship, what India has shown in its smaller steps and gestures, it will boost our vision to link west policy. This link west policy will change the demography in the larger terms, and the whole region might come up as a new center for may not be power, but leadership is a better word. The region, the Gulf country, is a very important for India because it holds the Indian diaspora and considerable economic significance. For us, we cannot ignore that. So, in the long term, in post COVID-19, India will enable to generate its outreach, its region, and it will be hailed for its initiatives. This is something about the world politics, a very small word about the diaspora. I can see a very spiritual theory building behind this particular response to COVID. We all know how banyan tree is sacred to us. Why it is sacred to us? It is a never dying tree because it generates from one root, and then when it becomes larger than its shape, then it comes down again to the earth and becomes another root. The diaspora, Indian diaspora, we can generate as a new theory calling the banyan tree theory. Because like the roots of banyan tree, Indians are also sprouting all over the world, and that is the actual meaning of diaspora. The spurge or the sprouts of different seeds everywhere. So with this banyan tree, one of the most venerated trees of Hinduism, India has been able to grow and survive. It has grown in centuries, it has survived for centuries, and now it is compared as the God's shelter to other communities. A very veteran scholar just said that it is not only looking after the diaspora, it is actually looking after to other nationals as well. They look towards India. So its roots go down, and east or west, north or south, that cycles nutrients. These nutrients are the Indian values. They contribute a long-term sustainability, providing food, cover, nestling sites to everyone, whether they are the parasites or they are the independents, where they are the lobbies or they are the power centers. We are able to touch everyone in the same go. The banyan tree is also the symbol of immortality, and it's like a Bahupad. And when we say Bahupad, then India need not go through the consulates or through the embassies to touch upon the lives of diaspora. These Bahupad, the diaspora lives themselves will act, as the extended cells towards other people. So imagine that when we say the permanent national reality is robust, all embracing, sheltering on, self sustained, and reliant. So, this by virtue of its size and nature, it won't leave anything untouched. So, India's response to COVID 19 is not a transient or periodic or a problem oriented response. As an accommodation, as a researcher, I can see maybe nuance changing or yonder changing happening, which has happened in past 4 months. And India is going to set the new narratives where it would be heard loudly, it would be heard positively and emphatically. So we look forward to attend all these changing connotations, permutations, combinations in the world politics, and that is more important. With these words, I would like to end. The very elongated subject, I know, and passionately we can go on and on. But thank you so much, Professor Atanuji and Professor Pandit, the VC of Central University, and honorable panel for giving me this chance to be a part of it. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste, madam. Thank you very much, ma'am, because it's quite natural. So when we hear from an academician, so he should or he should theorize the concept and the problem and the issues and the response and the solutions also. So well theorize आपने उसको जो banyan tree के हिसाब से you have theorized it. So it's quite natural. The roots are very strong and it has gone down and it has spread to almost all the countries. And we, the Indian diaspora, have seen that how deep rooted we, one foot there in the coastline, another foot in the homeland. And you have also indicated that, well, it has a cultural link also. So India has shown the world that, of course, yoga and Ayurveda and also Namaste, the cultural practices are so important and they have started practicing it. So the cultural ambassador of India as the Indian diaspora, so they are the instrument to making it more popular. And of course, this to the foreign nationals and the people, those who are the helm of the affairs, they started adopting those practices as well. We have seen in many instances. But in the meanwhile, I'll just put in one thing. So when I look at the problems and the issues, in particular in the context of diaspora, sometimes I feel that as if something is God gifted to our Prime Minister Modi. If you look at the policies which are initiated for last 14 since 2014, started from yoga, then Fit India, then Swachh Bharat Mission, and subsequently the inclusive policy of huge poor man's policy, health and your accidental policy and other policies which are covered for poor man's. So such policies are the need, the reality of immediately that has been tested. So during this COVID-19, what you require is you need to have to fit your body, you need fitness, you need yoga, you need also Swachh Bharat, and you need also, in the meanwhile, this Atma Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So such a huge policy making which he has come out with, it's really a great relief, and if it is implemented properly, then this will certainly address it. And it is this shows the reality of a visionary leader which is manifested in many instances. We'll see in also futures. And thank you very much, ma'am, for giving a wonderful lecture, linking the culture and the theorizing this concept of diaspora and how best we can practice it and link up with the diaspora and overcome the issue of not only this issue of COVID-19, and we certainly there are some opportunities there which we can transcend. These problems can be transcended into opportunities, and our Prime Minister Modi is very master in transcending it. Thank you very much, ma'am. So we'll move on to the next speaker. The next speaker of this panel is, I think, if Professor Rajneesh Shukla has joined, so may I request him to please log in, and Professor Madhukar, Dr. Madhukar is here. I think, all right. So now we'll move on to Ms. Sir, please unmute your mic. Yes, now you can speak. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Is it okay now to are you am I audible?
Yeah. You are very much audible, sir.
I am audible.
Okay. Yeah.
So Mr. Atanu Mahapatra, Dr. Dheeraj, whom I know well now, and I'm so glad that I'm here today to talk about the contributions of Indian government to the comfort of those Indians who were stranded abroad, and in general, whatever we wanted from support from the diaspora, who have been living in several countries of the world. I must say that both sides have obligations to each other. The Indian government and the Indian people have lot of concern for their children, their brothers, sisters living abroad. Similarly, the people who are living abroad, they are about numbering about 3 crores all over the world. It's a very sizable number, and since because they also contribute very substantially to the knowledge bank, to the prosperity, well-being of the countries wherever they are living. So they are very 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 respectable citizens of those countries wherever they are citizens or they are living there to serve those countries. They are being respected because of their contributions. So what happens that they also expect India as a country of their own ancestors and elders, but also they look at it from the point.
Sir, please unmute your mic. Yes, now you can speak. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Is it okay now to speak? Am I audible?
Yeah. You are very much audible, sir.
I am audible.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Mr. Atanu Mahendra, Dr. Dheeraj, whom I know well now, and I'm so glad that I'm here today to talk about the contributions of Indian government to the comfort of those Indians who were stranded abroad, and in general, whatever we wanted from support from the diaspora, who have been living in several countries of the world. I must say that both sides have obligations to each other. The Indian government and the Indian people have lot of concern for their children, their brothers, sisters living abroad. Similarly, the people who are living abroad, they are about numbering about 3 crores all over the world. It's a very sizable number, and since because they also contribute very substantially to the knowledge bank, to the prosperity, well-being of the countries wherever they are living. So they are very 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 respectable citizens of those countries wherever they are citizens or they are living there to serve those countries. They are being respected because of their contributions. So what happens that they also expect India as a country of their own ancestors and elders, but also they look at it from the point is a kind of laboratory where they are always doing research and always improving their product. So therefore, they are ruling the world in their own way. So that's why we are wanting also our Indian brethren who are living abroad, that they will continue to support us back in India in terms of technology, in terms of remittances that they have been remitting to India and therefore sustaining India's economy. That in no time, I know there have been occasions when we were very short of foreign exchange, and it was a big issue that we had to even pawn some gold in order to survive. But then those things are matters of the past now. With the remittances coming from all parts of the world, from our own Indian friends abroad and those who have families who are living there, they are always supportive. Whenever we float a bond, whether it was India Resurgent bond or any bond that we float in times of need, it is oversubscribed by our own Indians. So much so that we had to even stop their further remittances when it came to the Resurgent India bond, which had to be done when there was a sanction imposed on us, following the nuclear explosion that we did. So therefore, such things are very common now between two of us, two sides, and therefore, in this time of pandemic, our government did enough, or maybe to the maximum extent possible, to provide relief to the people who were stranded and they were brought back, through the medium of Vande Bharat system or whatever the system which was in place. So that provided succor to them. They provided that there is a country which is of their own country, where they can fall back upon. They can always look forward to help and assistance in times of any calamity or in need. So I must admit and must say that Indian government has been very supportive of the diaspora, and I am sure that it is giving results in many ways. That time is not far when India will be one of the most advanced countries, and mainly because of the contributions of those people who are, and they are connecting ourselves with the. Hello, is it okay? Am I audible? Am I still audible? Not audible?
You are audible. You are audible, sir.
Audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay, all right. So therefore, I'm saying that both sides have to look up to each other for any kind of sustenance and support, so that we become a strong nation in the true sense. So therefore, it's a big reservoir of knowledge as well as resources, and they are financially very well placed, and therefore, we can always look to them for support, for our support. At the same time, they also look towards us, that if India achieves some degree of success in the field of technology, and if we also become a technologically advanced country, then there is a room for their prosperity, their growth. They are coming back to India to serve their country. So that possibility is always emerging. Possibilities are there, and I'm sure that in no distant time, India will achieve that position where these people who are living abroad and who are our own people will like to come back, gladly come back. Only thing is that their children may not like to come back. That is a different thing altogether. But if India can provide them jobs and facilities by which they feel very happy and comfortable, there is no reason why they will not also like to come back. So therefore, we are looking towards. We have played a role, a definitely good, supportive, significant role in mitigating the hardships created for those who are stranded abroad and who were no means to meet their obligations. So hence, I am very glad that this subject has come up now for a global webinar, and we are trying to remember the great contributions made by Indian government. Thank you very much. I have nothing more to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Madhurkar, because you have rightly pointed out there is a need for both sides, India as well as the Indian diaspora. But we have been receiving as per the expectations and what they have been receiving and what they expect from us. Of course, you focused on technology and remittances. These two are very important to in the future course of action, like how best we can technologically, because it's quite sure already the technology-driven society has started. And particularly during this corona crisis, we have seen how technology has taken a lead, and we live in a technology-driven society. And certainly in the coming years, so this technology in all aspects, whether it is know-how or whether it is communication or whether it is industrial technology. So it would certainly help both sides to support each other. Similarly, remittances, which is a very important aspect of diaspora community, what we receive as a part of remittance and strengthen the economy. And it is quite natural and we always appreciate and take note of it whenever we need it. So they have supported us and they will continue to support in a big way or in a small token way. They have been supporting and they'll continue to support. At the same time, India has certain role to play, and in India will continue. But one thing we should also take a note of it, that whatever the expectations we have from India, so it has been met. So what their expectations and their expectations from India has gone increased many folds, because the positioning of India in globe, in the world, for last 6 years, we have seen how India has positioned itself, and that has been also because of the strong leadership, strong political willpower, strong bilateral relation, foreign policy, and a vibrant economy with huge human capital. Such kind of potentiality we have at present. For last 6 years, we have seen under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi And so it is quite natural that expectation will increase manifold. And also equally, I do see that they are also instrumental to such positioning. It's Indian diaspora who help and play an instrumental role in positioning India and its aspiration for a global power, and will continue to, and certainly will achieve it in soon. Maybe in a couple of years we'll achieve it. Thank you very much for a wonderful thought sharing with us. So we will now move on to this next speaker. Is Mr. Thomas available here? Mr. Thomas, are you here? Well, so now we will next move on to Professor Alok Chakraval. Professor Alok Chakraval is around? Professor Alok Chakraval from Rajkot, Saurashtra University. Professor Alok. Professor Rajnish Shukla. Professor Rajnish Shukla, Vice Chancellor, Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha. He may not be able to get in this connectivity because he was traveling from Delhi to Wardha, so I can understand his problem. And he had categorically told me I may get disconnected in between. I don't know. So no, we would next. Can we move on to the next speaker? And we have next speaker, our own JNU alumni senior, Sri Bhargav Mitra ji, and he has requested my what do you call introduction is very brief, and certainly it's very brief. So JNU alumni, that's one. Second is he studied in Center for Russian Studies in School of Language and Literature. And 1984 to 1989, he stayed in JNU, did BA and MA, and subsequently joined the civil service. And at present, he is Joint Secretary in Government of India, perhaps looking at the affairs of our Prime Minister office. And sir, you are a JNUite, so I know you know all aspects, and you are a quite experienced person in terms of your bureaucratic understanding and also diasporic context and how best we can respond, and we have responded in past, we can respond in future also. So please, I request Sri Bhargav Mitra sir to deliver the valedictory speech. Sir, please. Bhargav sir. Please unmute your mic.
Yeah. Sorry, I know I forgot to unmute the mic. Welcome to all the. Am I audible now? It's all right?
Yeah, sir.
So all the dignified speakers who have graced this occasion and who have spoken their heart out, and that's something which is very the major takeaway of this entire conversation, entire webinar. This webinar has essentially tried to focus on what Indian government has done, what India has essentially, not as a favor to anybody, but as a mark of duty, and that's very important. And whenever you do a duty, there would be a few gaps which are understandable. Anything of this nature, of this magnitude, will always leave a few gaps. But our endeavor is not to look at the gaps. Our endeavor is to look at the positive side of what has been achieved and what lesson we can learn from the entire episode of COVID-19. Probably in our lifetime, just hope that COVID-19 kind of situation happen only once in our lifetime, and that's about it. We have learned enough from this. When Minister of State Muralidharan ji spoke, he spoke about the steps that Indian government is taking, the proactive stance that the government of India has taken, the role that the embassies and the consulates across the world have done, the way the diaspora has responded. I would always submit, that a couple of things are not visible to us when we are away, when we are handling a crisis of this nature, a couple of things are not clear to us. But at the back of what is happening, a lot of activities going on which we are not aware of. They may not come to the surface, but a lot of things are happening. We are part of the government. We also kind of keep doing something or the other, and we understand how difficult it has been for the government to address this issue in a manner that we always have to look at India as a country of 130 crore people. When we compare that with a small country elsewhere, then we understand that the magnitude of the problem is massive. And to control India is almost an impossible exercise. If the government of the day has been able to do something in this regard, it's a mammoth work, and that must be acknowledged. And I'm not speaking because I'm part of the government. I'm speaking because I'm part of the Indian establishment. I'm also an Indian national, and I can understand what exactly has been going on. So these points have been highlighted by the Minister of State. When Professor Mohan Gautam spoke, he very graciously touched upon the uh, gesture of lending a hand of help, and that's something which is very important. In such times of crisis, any hand of help is handy, is important, and it basically reflects what we are. It's very essential. A crisis shows the man. The crisis has actually brought to the fore some very unsung heroes who never were seen anywhere. And if you can see around your own lives, very small people, very unsung people, very ordinary people whom we always thought they are very ordinary, they have become extraordinary warriors. So we have a warrior in ourselves, and that warrior has come to the fore. And that is a very major takeaway of this entire COVID-19. So COVID-19 has also shown a few positive streaks. It's not always something which has hit us very hard. It has hit us very hard. It has hit everybody very hard. There's no country in the world which has not been hit very hard. Some countries have handled it in a particular manner. Every country has its own challenges, so I'll not go into comparisons. But the way we have risen to the task is something which is outstanding. A lot remains to be done, but still. Then Professor Ajay Dubey also spoke about the plight of Indians abroad. That has been a very major issue. But as our esteemed speakers have shown and spoken, this issue has been handled or is being handled in a very competent manner and with a lot of sensitivity. We for sure we know we have served the missions abroad. Ambassador Mudgal also touched upon this issue very effectively when he spoke about the humane approach of the embassies. You also must understand the load that is on an Indian embassy. If you are in Washington, or if you are in the UK, if you are in Central Asian countries, or if you are Russia for that matter, the kind of requests that come in, the kind of pressure that an embassy official can be, there could be a few occasions of whatever. But we all ultimately will have to look at it from the perspective of how we are approaching the matter. So I think Professor Ajay Dubey touched upon it very well. And he also spoke about the plight of Indians in Africa and the way the government has been aiding and coming to the support of those people where even medical services are not available. So that service has been provided. These are all happening in the background, is going on while the country is struggling with so many things which are visible in the media. What is not visible in the media is what is happening from the vis-a-vis the diaspora, vis-a-vis the stranded Indians. This is not something which is visible. You can only see a flight landing on some kind of tarmac and all that. But the effort which goes behind handling a one flight full of Indians, or as one of our speakers very rightly said, about even foreign nationals being lent a hand of help by the Indian government when their own governments were not actually doing much about it. They left it to the Indian government to handle it. We handled it. We took care of that. And I must tell you that quite a few American nationals who are stationed in India, they refused to go back to the US. They decided to stay back in India because somehow they thought that the situation in the US was not being handled the way it should have been as compared to what India has been doing. So they had more faith in the Indian system of handling COVID-19 than their own systems back home. This, we don't need a certificate, but at the same time, we must pat on our backs, and the guys who are doing a fantastic job. Professor Annapurna Pandey, she brought up some extremely important issues pertaining to the visa-related matters or problems being faced by Indian nationals in the US. And I think we have taken note of a few requests and suggestions from her to the government of India, especially to the MEA. And I'm sure that we will kind of compile it. And Aj will be kind enough to kind of put it through to the Minister of State for its consideration. And I'm sure the government of India will take a composite look at what exactly. And these are very valid issues because Madam has been experiencing it firsthand, and that's why it becomes important. And she has seen it from very close angles, and especially she brought up the issue of the children born in the US, and suddenly after attaining age of 21, they face a problem. They somehow do not stay. They are not allowed to stay in the capacity that they have been staying. Well, the priority to the elderly, as she brought out a very important issue about domestic abuse. I mean, domestic abuse has been taking place in many countries as a follow pandemic. This is something which has brought the ugly side of a human being to the fore. It's something which I would not always attribute it to the pandemic. I would also attribute to the intrinsic human values that one has or doesn't have, or the lack of it, which actually get translated or reflected through a pandemic when there is a frustration. So pandemic is basically causing a frustration. So the frustration is basically leading to some kind of reflection of these the bad sentiments through domestic abuse. Domestic abuse was always there, unfortunately, but this is brought to the fore. Rights of women abroad. She brought up a very important issue about how their women are being hoodwinked into getting married and all that when they're taken to the US and either left stranded there or exploited. I mean, their plight, since they do not know the rights and all that. Madam brought out some very important points about the rights of Indian women who are married off and under very difficult circumstances to very rich people in the US, with a lot of promises being made. So those promises are not being fulfilled. So this is something which the government of India, the diaspora also will have to kind of lend a hand of help to make people understand about the rights. If somebody lands up there, the diaspora can also hold your hand and tell a few things about what are the local rules and regulations. It's something where there's a cohesion between the government of India, the embassies, the consulates, and the diaspora. I think that quite a few speakers have touched upon this point. Ambassador Mudgal also spoke very, very nicely about a few issues about how the government has been handling it and what kind of feedback the diaspora has been giving to the government and especially to his organization. And he mentioned that India is becoming a supplier of human manpower. It's something which is very relevant. The 32 million approximately diaspora is a behemoth of a power abroad. And there are a lot of expectations from the diaspora. He also touched upon the fact how Herculean the effort has been from the Indian side to evacuate its nationals. And he also said India has done an extraordinary job with this. Proactive involvement of Indian missions he brought about. MEA situation we touched upon. And he also very importantly spoke about the Islamic factor or the Muslim factor of Gulf countries. The Indians are working there. They're doing a lot of things in these countries, and they contribute a lot to the growth of the Gulf countries. And the Gulf countries have also risen to the task. And when it was mentioned that the massive number of people, Indians who have come back from a particular country was from the UAE. So there is a very important synergy which is taking place between the government of India, the Indian side, and the Gulf countries. So all these friendships which have been built over the years, they are now translating into some solid interaction, solid help. At times when there have been such crises, and we are aware of it, some of it, that at very short notice, you had to send a dispatch a flight or evacuate a national. So these governments have also responded. And this response has not come just like that. It has been built over the years. This crisis has actually brought many countries together on one platform. Ambassador Mudgal also very rightly mentioned, and we all share that sentiment, that it's a long-run battle. Yes, it's a long-run battle. This will continue. It'll also show what kind of steel we have, how we have steeled ourselves to this kind of challenge. Are we in a position to deal with it? Are we in a position to handle this matter the way it should be? And would this crisis make us better human beings? Because we have seen death from very close angles. I mean, you can't have 6 to 7 million people dying just like that. We have only read it in books. But once we see that happen in front of our own eyes, people who are there, part of our families, tomorrow they are gone, it really strikes you as something, which is undeniable. It's a very important fact. So it's a long-run battle. It will continue. The drop in economy, as you mentioned, is something which will be won over. India is a country which is on the upswing. It can take on the world. It can basically have that harmony between itself and the international community. Technology-wise, we have had great results. We have, as rightly mentioned, the openings are there. Then I think Dr. Neerja Gupta also touched upon some very, very important issues, and she said that thoughtfulness and strategy making, these have been the bulwarks of India's strategy there. And she very importantly said India has touched the diaspora, not only the diaspora but the international community also. India has actually helped both the sides. The diaspora, India was not very narrow in its approach. It did not restrict itself to only the diaspora and look the other way when it came to the other foreign nationals. It also treated the foreign nationals as humans of the world, who required India's help. So that help was given. I mean, there are a lot of people who have taken that help, and even if some help has not been asked for, Indian government has felt that yes, this person needs to be rescued from here. He also needs to be rejoined with his near and dear ones back in his home. The Indian government has taken steps like to be evacuated, and only after that this decision was taken. Very rightly, Dr. Neerja Gupta has mentioned that Indian citizens have risen to the task. It's a very important thing. It has generated confidence. Then model of leadership has been developed, she says. And India has provided that model of leadership. How this kind of crisis of this nature can be handled, we have shown to the world. It's not to prove a point. It's basically to have that belief in ourselves that we can handle a crisis of this nature. So essentially, we are trying to prove a point to ourselves that yes, we are confident as a country. Whatever has been happening, we are handling it. It's also a lesson for many countries. As one of the esteemed speakers, I think, at the end spoke about Taiwan. Taiwan is the classical example. And Taiwan has done, Dr. Madhukar mentioned about Taiwan. And a wonderful example of discipline and all that. If you have followed a lot of discipline in the initial stages in Japan, in South Korea, then because people listened. In our country, there are a lot of people who might listen, who may not listen. So we have to live with that. That's why the United States is facing a problem today, because people don't listen. So they're not wearing masks. So naturally, there would be fallouts. It's clear cut, But still, that's very important that we are trying to do something, and in a very, very pragmatic and very straightforward manner. She also said, Dr. Gupta, that pandemic has fastened the pace of look towards Asia. We have also shown to the world how these things are handled. So there is a lot of respectability towards Asia, a lot of respectability towards India. And she goes on to mention that the enormity of the crisis showed that India has the capability to handle. We have touched upon this issue. India's response to pandemic has gone. It has, it's not only handling of the situation, but also to provide a solution. These are very important things. We are also kind of, being very innovative in our approach. We are trying to contribute not only to our own self, but to the global goodness also. And then she says, India has shown how to absorb the effects of the calamity. It's a very important point, because if we are not rising to the task, we have shown that despite the issues, we have absorbed the calamity quite well. See, the deaths and all that which are happening, they were bound to happen. That's something which is 130 crore. There would be some deaths, but one doctor very famously said that I'm happy that everybody has COVID-19, but as long as the mortality rate doesn't go up, I'm not concerned. Let somebody had COVID, recover and be happy, and then grow nicely. But if the mortality rate starts rising, then it's a matter of concern. So the Indian government has also taken that position that we will kind of safeguard our nationals who are stranded there, so that morbidity factor, they do not languish for the lack of medical services. So even medical services have been provided. So that has also been the hallmark of how we have handled these issues. And it's a something, she spoke about the project India will be able to expedite. So essentially, Dr. Mohammed also spoke about the necessary technological advances which are not being made No, he has his concerns. But I would like to assure Professor Dr. Muralidhar that we are making a lot of technological advances which are not visible to the naked eye, but we are doing quite a lot, and India is doing fantastically well. It is very difficult to rule this country, and all of you who are very distinguished people would understand that this kind of crisis, with this kind of population, with this kind of management, of this kind of uh, difference or divergence of views on everything possible, what the government has tried to do in association with the diaspora, in association with the Indians abroad, in association with the friendly countries abroad, it's a mammoth exercise. So I think it has been a very wonderful learning curve. For me also, I came to know quite a few facts, and I think all the proposals which have been mooted by various speakers, they would be kind of put into a report, and we will take up the matter at the requisite level. So I would like to thank all the speakers who have brought a lot of value and substance to the discussion. And I would also like to thank the organizers of the thing. I'm sure this task will be done by Dr. Priyavrata at the end of the thing. So I won't take away anything. Thank you so much. Back to our moderator.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, you have eased my task because normally immediate after validity. Sorry?
Well done, Bhargav, I said.
Yes, because he has eased my task because you have captured all points spoken by the respective speakers. So you have well formulated and articulated the points, what have been done, what will be done, from standard citizens to quarantine and the providing facilities. And there are also some hidden facilities which are not known to public, but it is continuously being provided at various level at various countries to the Indian citizen, Indian diaspora. So now you have captured all the points. So there is hardly anything, and normal practice after validatory. So the comparers or the moderators role is very less. So now I would request towards the end, I would request our own Vice Chancellor, Professor Ramashankar Dubey, to deliver the presidential address, to introduce our presidential address, who is giving presidential address, Professor Ramashankar Dubey, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Central University of Gujarat, and he has served 2 times as Vice Chancellor in different universities. One is Tilka Manjhi Bhagalpur University in Bhagalpur, Bihar, and another in Guru Ghasidas University, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. And he joined, as I said, when we listened to the university song, which was composed and written by our Honorable Vice Chancellor. And that shows that how much he has love, affection, and deep understanding of language, literature, apart from his own field, like chemistry and biotechnology. He possesses an excellent academic record with MSc degree from Banaras Indian University, where he positioned first in order in the biochemistry and got the PhD degree in biochemistry. Professor Dubey sir had 43 years of experience in research and more than 36 years of teaching experience. And he has been head of the department for the Department of Biochemistry for 9 years. And academically, he has 150 scientific articles, book chapters in peer-reviewed journals, in international and national journals. And most importantly, 12,500 citations with H index and I index. 31 students have been received PhD degree under his students, and he has been many award winner, and he has been, because the list is very long and we have very time limit, and he has traveled and served in many countries in different laboratories, whether it is Japan or China, or Japan or Germany, anywhere, many countries he has served. And as a renowned scientist, He has achieved many awards, and also he was assigned many academic assignments by Government of India, Minister of HID, and also different state government. And he has been a search committee member, NAC committee members, and many more responsibilities been assigned to him by Government of India and the state governments as well. So we are delighted to have you, sir. And as a chair of the entire session, and I would request to please deliver your presidential address, and subsequently we will end up with the national anthem. And I request Professor Ramashankar Dubey, sir, please deliver your speech.
Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. Our chief guest of today's webinar, Sri V. Muralidharanji, our Honorable Minister of State, External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs. Our keynote speaker, Professor Mohan Kumar Gautamji, Chancellor and President, European University of East and West, Netherlands. Professor Ajay Kumar Dubeji, Dr. BBL Madhukarji, Professor Annapurna Pandeji, our guest of honor, Ambassador Anup Mudgalji, Secretary Antarashtriya Sahयोग Parishad, Professor Mirza Gupta ji, Professor Alok Chaktawal, our valedictory speaker, Sri Bhargav Mitra ji, Joint Secretary, Dr. Priyadat ji, Professor Rajesh Kumar ji, President, Alumni Association of JNU, Dr. Dheeraj Kumar Singh, convener of the webinar, Dr. Mahib, Professor Atanu Bhattacharya, Chairperson, Center of Diaspora Studies, Central University of Gujarat, Dr. Pramod Kumarji, Registrar, JNU, all learned speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Really, we can say that it has been a wonderful webinar altogether today, because we could witness elegant deliberations by many of our, almost all of our learned speakers. The Indian diaspora represents the largest diaspora in the world. The Indian diaspora has been a source of remittances, technology, and intellectual power. Ever since the Indian economy was liberalized and began to grow at a rapid pace, the prosperous diaspora in the developed countries and the massive number of migrant workers in the Gulf became the backbone of the Indian economy. India has continued to respond very well to the requirements of the diaspora by creating the machinery in our missions abroad and in state capitals and in Delhi. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been seen almost in all countries of the world. The economies in almost all countries have suffered badly. Even the most developed nations could not find adequate measures to address the problems arising out of pandemic situation. The government of India has taken various steps, as pointed out by all the learned speakers, and rather outstanding steps have been taken by the government to mitigate the difficulties emerged out of COVID-19 pandemic and to assure the safety and security and livelihood of Indian citizens as well as Indian diaspora who are abroad. Very nicely, it was pointed out by our Honorable Minister that our infrastructure has come under severe stress in this COVID-19 pandemic. But so nicely India has responded with many examples. He very nicely quoted that in the beginning, we were not in a position to manufacture our personal protective equipment, PPE, but now we are doing it with a massive scale. And he pointed out that Jan bhi and Jahan bhi, that we have to save the lives. And at the same time, we have looked for the complex situation arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic. But at the same time, India has responded so well with so many types of schemes. And very nicely, he pointed out that during the 6 phases, that mission initiated by the government of India to take Indian diaspora from various countries to India has succeeded very well, and we are now in the 6th phase of that one. Our keynote speaker, Mohan Gautamji, pointed out some of the problems related to that especially related to the cultural diplomacy, and that point was well taken by the other speakers. Professor Ajay Dubegi has also nicely laid down the entire scenario that how Indian government has responded, and almost all of the workers, they appreciated the steps taken by the government, and some of the problems which were outlined by Professor Annapurna Pandeyji, like the visa holders. So already it was, I mean, the point was narrated by our Joint Secretary, and he has very nicely mentioned that all points have been taken care. And especially, she mentioned about the problems of the students and especially the jobless persons, that how, when they come back to India, how their repatriation is being done and how they will be looked after. So many schemes have been launched by the government of India in this regard. Ambassador Anup Mudigalji, and very nicely he told that for the last 40 years that Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad has been working related to the problems of Indian diaspora, and the ASRP has organized a series of sectoral dialogues with diaspora located in different countries. And India, the very important point, he mentioned that India has supplied large number of skilled and semi-skilled workers during the last 30 years. And that's the reason why the Indian diaspora today represents the largest diaspora in the world. Professor Nirja Gupta ji also outlined very nicely how India responded to manage the crisis, and she pointed out about the yoga and other practices being followed in India, and which has been very helpful for the other persons. Here I would like to make a special point to Dr. BBL Madhukarji, who pointed out that we have to be technologically advanced, and our research publications has to be more and more quality oriented. I would like to point it out here that even today also, if we take out, I mean, if you see the Indian publications coming out of science and technology, we are number 3rd in the world. And our IITs, many of our ICERs, many of the central university, and many of the state university are doing exceedingly well in terms of technological development, in terms of patents, in terms of quality research. And in the days ahead, we see still bright future of Indian scientists, Indian engineers. And as our Joint Secretary Bhargav Mitraji, he pointed out the main complexity of the Indian situation, that we are dealing with the people, 135 crore people. So the complexities are to be realized, and realizing the complexity and how the government has done, to really the work done by the government has been really outstanding. And not only Indian people have appreciated, but people across the globe, even in different countries, the premiers of different countries, they have appreciated the work done by the government of India, because in the time of crisis, we are number 3rd in terms of pharma industries, and we have exported, even we have supplied the medicines and many equipment to different countries. So taking all together, that today's international webinar has witnessed very excellent deliberations by our chief guest and by all learned speakers who are here from the different parts of the world. And I'm sure the deliberations of this webinar will be very useful in planning future strategies, making policy recommendations to help the plight of COVID-19 affected diaspora residing in different parts of the world, and those Indians who have returned back from various parts of the world to India. So with these words, I thank you once, all of you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your nice and kind words as a presidential remark to conclude the session. Now we are coming to the end, so I request, because we have already extended more than half an hour time, we request our old friend, that is my old friend, Dr. Priyavart from Sydney. He has been very patiently listening to the all panelists for last 3.5 hours. And I request Dr. Priyavart from Sydney, who is a professional and associated with many activities, and also associated with one department of Australia, And I request, he is a JNU old alumni. Of course, he was 1 or 2 years junior to me, but we are very quite friendly. And I request Dr. Priyavak to offer a vote of thanks. Please unmute yourself. Dr. Priya, please unmute.
Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. First and foremost, I thank our Chief Guest, Honorable V. Muralidharan, Minister of State for External and Parliamentary Affairs, who, despite his busy schedule, has found time to grace this occasion. I express my heartfelt thanks to Professor Mohan K. Gautam, Chancellor, President, European University East and West, The Hague, Netherlands. We are grateful to guest of honor Ambassador Anup K. Mudgal for his words and encouragements. I thank him for his kindness, interest, and support. I thank Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey, Dr. Annapurna Pandey, Professor Rajnish Shukla, Professor Neeraj Arun Gupta were not there, and Professor Alak Chakrawal and Mrs. Michelle Thomas also not there, Professor Ramasankar Dubey for their participations. I owe special gratitude to our AAJEC, specifically President Rajesh Kumarji, General Secretary Dheeraj Kumar Singhji, Convener Mahip Singhji, and our very lovable Mr. Bhargav Mitra, Joint Secretary in PMO, for specific enlightenment that go beneath the surface, connecting many on-link threads that's not visible on wider spectrum. I thank our Registrar of JNU, Dr. Pramod Kumar, for his consistent support. My heartfelt thanks to all esteemed and distinguished participants, invitees, JNU alumni present here for their valuable contributions, guidance, and encouragement in all our efforts. Last but not least, I thank you, my friends, for your cooperation in making this webinar a resounding success. Finally, I'll leave you to this inspiring quotes by Martin Luther King: an individual has not started living until he rises above the confines of his individualistic conscience to the broader conscience of all humanity. Once again, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Mahapatra.
Thank you. Indeed.
Gentlemen also raise a hand for Dr. Atanu Mahapatra for his flawless moderation of the webinar. And you had an enormous task at hand. And the kind of connection that you had on each speaker was something which must be emulated by anybody who wants to moderate properly.
Thank
so
you
your
so
knowledge
much.
showed, your interest showed, your appreciation of the subject showed. So you deserve our special appreciation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your nice words. And we all hail from a similar institution, so we know the academic hunger. इसको हम कहते हैं academic mood. अभी देखिए, because just a while Professor Ajay Dubey was here, and he immediately shifted to his program which he was hosting. He is continuously hosting every Saturday or Sunday, and he come back immediately and join it. So this shows the academic hunger of people like academicians. And I could see many professors, Professor Tanuja Singh also here, and also S.K. Rawat, and most importantly, Professor Mohan Gautam, who is last 3.5 years continuously listening, and also Professor Tanuja Singh also listening. So we have already come to the end, and I request before we end, the technical team to please play out the national anthem, and I request all the dignitaries and participants to please rise and for the national anthem, and subsequently we will end up. Thank you so much.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा
भारत माता की।
चलिए, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। तो आज इस कार्यक्रम में आप सब लोगों ने सहभागी की और बहुत सफल बनाए कार्यक्रम को। और जितने भी बाहर से, विदेशों से और देश के अंदर से जितने भी डिग्नेटरीज पार्टिसिपेंट्स थे, सबको बहुत बहुत तहे दिल से मैं शुभकामनाएं और बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं। और इस प्रकार के आने वाले समय में हम चर्चा, परिचर्चा और संगोष्ठी करते रहेंगे और आप सबकी सहयोग कामना है। तो इसी के साथ मैं देख रहा हूँ हमारे कुलपति प्रोफेसर उमाशंकर दुबे सर भी लंबे समय से हमारे बीच में रहे हैं और 3.5 घंटे 4 घंटे से, जबकि उन्होंने 2 सेमिनार कॉन्फ्रेंस आज सुबह अटेंड कर चुके हैं वेबिनार। तो ऐसा ही हमें, जब अगर हमारे दिल में, अगर मन में अगर हम ठान ले, तो निश्चित रूप से ये दिन दूर नहीं है कि हम उस मुकाम तक छुएंगे जो मुकाम हम विश्व गुरु की जो मुकाम हम कल्पना किए थे। इसी के साथ बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आज। और
आप
ARSP,
सबों को नमस्कार।
ODI सभी की तरफ से, सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ गुजरात सभी की तरफ से, सेंटर फॉर डायस्पोरा स्टडीज सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी गुजरात सभी को बहुत बहुत नमस्कार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। शुभ रात्रि।
आज की तरफ से भी आप सबों को धन्यवाद। बहुत
अतुल भाई,
बहुत
आपको भी और सबों को नमस्कार।
जी धन्यवाद धन्यवाद धन्यवाद
नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
दुबे सर आपको भी प्रणाम।
हाँ, प्रणाम प्रणाम प्रणाम। और हम लोग की तरफ से, ट्रस्टी की तरफ से आप सबको प्रणाम, सभी को प्रणाम।
प्रणाम सर, प्रणाम।
प्रणाम सर।
प्रणाम प्रणाम प्रणाम।
जय दुबे जी, धन्यवाद।
अतुल भाई,
नमस्ते नमस्ते। जय जगन्नाथ, जय जगन्नाथ। स्वामी नारायण पथगामी भव तुम्हें। जय जगन्नाथ।
ठीक है महेश जी, थैंक यू।
प्रणाम सर।
प्रणाम प्रणाम प्रणाम।
थैंक यू,
प्रणाम सर। यस सर, थैंक यू। नमस्कार सर। नमस्ते भाई।
नमस्कार नमस्ते नमस्कार।
हाँ तो बंद हो गई।